So you're a teacher. What do you include in a lesson plan? This is a question that both new teachers and old teachers need to think about when planning out what they're going to do each day. And there's a book that I go to regularly called Language Curriculum Design by MacAlister and Nation, 2020, that really breaks down all of the components that go into a language curriculum, from the program level to the class, all the way to what are you doing in a day. And they have this design that kind of looks like some sort of alien technology, and maybe it is, but this pattern has been really helpful for identifying all of the elements that I need to consider before I even start writing my curriculum. The first thing that they talk about is the impact of the environment. And that could be everything from this classroom that I teach in every day. It could be the country where I teach that has different laws that will impact what I do in the classroom. It might be the places that my students are coming from. I currently have students from at least 4 or 5 different countries, and those different environmental factors are going to impact what I do in a given day. If I go into class thinking that all of my students have the same first language, I'm going to be leaving someone out. So I need to accommodate that reality when I'm planning out my lessons. The second element that the authors say needs to be considered is the needs of the class. Students coming into my class, they're coming here for a specific reason. They need to get college ready so that they can start taking courses at the Fine Arts College where they're studying. If I can't get them ready, then I haven't met their needs. But they also have wants. There's things that may not be required, but that they would desire from a course. I think one thing everyone would desire is that the course is fun. That would be a need. And there are also different lacks, things that students are lacking. So a lot of my students are coming from East Asia, where the curriculum is heavily focused on grammar and vocabulary recitation, which comes from the environment where they're studying. That's what's tested. But I need to get my students verbal. So that's a consideration when I'm planning my lessons, is that they lack this verbal competence, and I need to incorporate that into my lessons. The final external factor that I need to consider as a teacher is what principles, what research-based principles am I going to incorporate when designing my lessons. So in different areas of teachings, we have what we call the curriculum wars, where some educators might prefer a more direct instruction approach, where I'm the sage on the stage providing information. Other educators prefer more a student-centered approach based on, say, project-based learning or some sort of communicative interaction. As an educator, I need to consider what principles are most effective when I'm in the classroom. And so that requires me as a teacher and as a curriculum designer to go out and read different meta-analyses, read systematic reviews about different techniques to really make informed decisions. Is this something that I want to include within my curriculum? So these external factors really are the elements that drive what I'm going to put in my curriculum. I can't just come in here and think, this is what I like to do, and then make that a class. I have to consider my students, my school, the country where I'm teaching, all these different elements, as well as what's known in the field of language teaching before I even start designing my curriculum. And so what should be included in a lesson plan? These elements combine together to help teachers know what they need to include. So looking at the environment and the needs of the students, that helps me decide, what standards am I going to teach to? If I was in Taiwan, I might have to focus more on grammar and vocabulary because the environment is prompting me to do that. And if I don't do that, I might lose my job because my students aren't meeting the grade for what they need to do. Here, if I'm not teaching them how to communicate and giving an environment where they can do that, I'm not meeting the standards of the world around me. And so these two elements really determine what the goal of the teaching should be. The needs of the students and the principles of instruction, that's what combines together to really help determine what kind of content and the sequencing of the content I should be incorporating into my class. So I teach mainly with TPRS, teaching English, teaching proficiency through reading and storytelling, a communicative approach developed by Blaine Ray for teaching a foreign language. And I came to that based on different language learning principles that I've learned, such as Krashen's natural approach, that made it seem like this is a well-researched, well-informed system for teaching that meets my students' need that they need to talk. It's a good system for doing that. So that determines my content. I want to use TPRS stories in my classroom. Similarly, the principles that I'm incorporating in my teaching, along with the constructs of my environment, determine the format that I'm going to use in my class. I'm very fortunate to have a classroom that I can just stand in every day and no one's going to mess it up. So I have my setup with our class rules, the goals of the class, the date, which you can't see down there, class bookshelf in the back. My environment allows me to create a class format that works for me. Not everyone has that, so they might need to get creative. I've taught TPRS classes online, and the format's totally different, but when I can accept that, okay, that's what my environment is telling me, I need to figure out how to do what I do in here on Zoom. I've created some really great classes, so the environment and the principles of teaching help the teacher consider, what can I do with the format of this class? And so these three central elements come together to make up the core of the curriculum and ultimately the lesson plan. You know, these principles are taken, you know, on the program level, course level, and just the day-to-day lesson level. What content am I teaching? How am I going to do it within the space that I have? And how am I going to assess that what I did was effective? These outside influences, I think sometimes as Americans we have this sort of libertarian notion that, you know, we do what we want, no one can tell us what to do, but it's unavoidable. Considering the outside forces is unavoidable when I'm sitting down and trying to determine what is it that my students should be learning today and how am I going to teach it. So I hope this was useful to you. If you are a teacher, not just a language teacher, I highly suggest looking up Language Curriculum Design by MacAlister and Nation. This is my go-to text anytime I'm designing a course, and I hope this was useful for you. Happy teaching.